What's that?
Nothing. You're on video now.
Oh.
I just extended the professional courtesy to Scott Tady. Before the cameras go on, you say, if there's anything that you need to pick or scratch, get it out of the way.
Luckily, there was not.
And there's not, and you still want to offer it. Scott Tady is the entertainment editor for the Beaver County Times. Scott goes to concerts for a living. And you think, well, that's a cool thing, but sometimes you go to concerts you don't want to go to. That leads me to my first question. I just saw you posted the story. You saw Dog Star. Dog Star, for people that don't know who that band is, tell them who that band is.
The bass player is Keanu Reeves. Yes, Keanu from Speed and John Wick and The Matrix. And he was a Mr. Small sold-out show. And if it would have been a boat, it would have capsized to the one side because everyone in the crowd was standing on Keanu's side trying to get a great picture of the man himself playing bass guitar.
How does that make the lead singer feel? Because that doesn't happen. And maybe if you're a John Entwistle fan back in the day, but chicks don't dig bass guitar players. As a former bass guitar player, I know what I speak. How weird was that if people are ignoring everybody in the band except half the rhythm section?
You'd have stopped 100 people and said, what's the name of the singer? I bet 12 would have got his first name. But it was fun. And you know, he's fun to watch, and it makes a good rock and roll. It's like an early 2000s, late 90s kind of sound. It's easy to move around to and bounce your head to. It's not blasting your eardrums. Keanu didn't say much to the crowd. At one point he did a thank you, but he kept nodding and grinning, and you could just hear him nodding and thinking like in his Bill and Ted's voice, like, excellent. Yeah, you just knew that's what he was thinking. And he drank a Yingling at the encore. He came out for the encore, took a big swig of a Yingling beer, and got back to business. Keanu Reeves, who would have thought he'd be rocking Mr. Smalls in Millville?
Now let's talk about the show. Was it a good show?
Good enough.
Wait a minute. What's good enough?
the singer, whose name I can't recall, had a decent voice, and they rocked out. And let's be honest, he's playing bass, so it's not as much for him to screw up as if he was, the lead guitarist or singer or keyboardist. Now, no offense to bass players, but he kept it in the pocket. He did what was needed to be done. He wasn't trying to be Geddy Lee of Rush or anything, and he kept it basic.
And you know this, that's the perfect term, by the way. He stayed in the pocket.
Yes.
All you need is 3 notes. How many chords are in the song? 3?
Yeah.
All you need is 3.
I mean, he didn't mess them up.
Well, there you go. What do you think when you see a band that their notoriety is because of something musically you would consider a little bit minor? Notoriety, certainly, but do you go in watching that band with the thought of, all right, is this a good band, or is this a band that everybody knows because of Keanu Reeves?
I've seen a lot of actor bands. I've seen the Bacon Brothers with Kevin Bacon. I've seen Billy Bob Thornton's band. I've seen John C. Reilly's band. Maybe the toughest one was David Duchovny. He's a singer, yes, of X-Files, David Duchovny.
I didn't know he had a band.
I somehow scored tickets. It was Alder Bar, and then they get me backstage with him. So I'm down in the green room in the basement having hummus with David Duchovny, and we go out and watch the show. And it was one of those ones. His voice is just not. It's not that great. If he wasn't a famous actor, he wouldn't be headlining a concert venue. And it came time to write the review, and you got to be honest, and you try to find the right mix of saying, well, but the crowd enjoyed it, but you know, it was a tough one to write because I had to be honest, and he better not quit his acting career because he's not going to get by on a singer. Nice guy, though.
Nice guy. There's a line from a Harry Chapin song. He lacked the vocal color and tone to be consistently interesting. Is that a song called Mr. Tanner?
I like that.
About a guy that makes his town hall debut singing. And is that good for music, or is that insulting to real musicians? I use the term loosely, real musicians. Professional musicians are not professional actors with a side gig.
It's probably great if you're the drummer for Keanu Reeves' band because you're playing for 800 people in a packed room. Otherwise, you'd be maybe playing in a tribute band in your hometown. So it works for those real musicians, but I can see why other musicians would be kind of angry. Well, why are they getting so much attention, and why aren't we getting publicity? But in their defense, Dog Star's not really beating the doors down to get publicity either. They're kind of low-keying the fact he's their bass player, and they're not taking out ads in Rolling Stone proclaiming it. So he doesn't need the money. He's just doing it for fun.
Well, that's the best music when you're doing it because it's a passion.
Very true.
Yeah. Scott Tady is my guest. He's the entertainment editor for the Beaver County Times. Once a week we get together and we talk about shows that are coming up and not showing up. You interview musicians for a living. You also interview actors for a living. I've heard this said, and I want to ask you how true it is. Every actor wants to be a musician, and every musician wants to be an actor. I've also heard that said about comedians. Every comedian wants to be a musician. Every musician wants to be a comedian.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
If not every, a vast majority of them, for sure. Think of all the rock stars that went on to do movies like Mick Jagger. Remember he did that movie Ned Kelly. He was in a Western.
He was horrifically bad.
David Bowie and The Man Who Sold the World.
That was good.
That was bizarre. It was watchable. It was compelling. But if you can explain some of the plot to me, I'd be grateful.
No, I can't explain it. But you can tell when people can do it.
He was daring, though. He did full frontal nudity, David Bowie, in a 1973, 74 movie.
That no one asked for. Is he... I was talking about this on our sister station the other day. I played a David Bowie song. And I got to thinking, there is a Frank Sinatra music station network.
True.
There's an Elvis. There's a Beatles. Are we not paying attention to what should be happening? I don't know that there's a David Bowie full-time 24/7. You need two things. You need to be an icon, and you need to have the library. Are you surprised that hasn't happened yet?
That's a great concept. I love that idea. I think a lot of his deeper stuff is really underrated. Remember he did a punk band called Tin Machine for a while, and it was just straight up like punk rock from LA, but it was David Bowie. And he did his Pinups album back in the day where he covered other famous bands. So you have David Bowie covering early Pink Floyd, and it's really trippy stuff. And I thought the timing was kind of rough on him. Right after he died, Prince died not too long later, and that summer, every single band felt obligated to do a Prince tribute, which is cool. But after like the 12th Purple Rain, I was kind of over it. I give credit to Springsteen. When he came to town, they did Rebel Rebel by David Bowie. Nice. And I thought more should have. It seems like Bowie's passing kind of got lost in the wake of Prince's, and both icons. But I'd like to see more for David Bowie.
You mentioned Bruce Springsteen. I saw the shows that he missed. He missed the show, like a month ago. He was scheduled.
For 2 nights in PPG Paints Arena, yes.
All right. That's been rescheduled August 15th and August 18th. Does that mean he's going to be hanging out for a couple of days?
Him and Joe Grishecki can go down south side. They're going to have some gyros.
That's it. No, that
probably.
If anybody would do that, it would be Springsteen. Go down, hang out Pittsburgh Guitars, maybe find you new acts.
One thing Bruce has said is, in his apology for scheduling it 11 months from now, is he's going to make it up to you, Pittsburgh. So instead of doing maybe a 3.5-hour show, maybe he'll do a 4-hour show that night.
How many times have you seen Springsteen?
11, I believe.
11?
Yeah.
Was there ever a show that you walked out and thought, it's all right?
Yeah, he kind of only gave half effort. No. At least he leaves it all on the stage, and he's giving it everything he's got, and you can kind of sense that.
All right, let me take that and run with it a little bit. What band out there, when they give everything, they're brilliant, but they don't always give everything? It's a mood, and I'm not talking about a fist fight like the Robinson Brothers.
I was thinking
Black Rose.
Yeah.
That's external forces. I'm talking about some days they walk out and it's just
Maybe Aerosmith, and the last time they were here a month ago, they were phenomenal. It was one of the better shows of the summer. But I recall seeing them a few times where it just didn't feel like they were in the same room together. Maybe the Police, the 2 times I've seen them. It was almost like there was an invisible wall between the 3 of them. I'm sure they weren't really speaking at that, phase of time. But again, it didn't feel as awesome as I thought it would. But I'd say Aerosmith. How about you?
Aerosmith, I've seen them enough to say, okay, that wasn't as good as the other time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an issue of them paying attention. It's just not having it together. But I'm glad you mentioned the Police. We know so much more about the inner workings of that band and other bands because they've gotten older, and now those guys will tell the story. Does that make you think differently of that band? The Police, when I was growing up, that was one of the bands. Orlando's the Amor and Synchronicity and all that stuff was so good. I read that now and I see Andy Summers doing interviews, and it's what you just said. Well, we weren't speaking at the time. Like, do you think differently of a band when you know the the previous dirty laundry.
Yeah, and I did one of those Andy Summers interviews. I'll circle back to that, but yeah, you think they could just pull it together for a worldwide tour and pretend like you like each other and slap five or give a light hug to each other or show that you care about each other at some point. What they did back in the day was phenomenal. I think you kind of owe it to fans to rally, even if the second the tour is over, you never speak again. So. And it was a good interview. I got to say, I asked the typical question, do you have any memories of Pittsburgh? And usually you get, oh, yeah, Pittsburgh, we love. He had a good one. He said, is it the first or second U.S. tour, here they are in Pittsburgh, him and Stinger going out after the show to party. He said the Pittsburgh women were crazy, the way they were dressed. It was real scandalous, and they were all coming on to us, and it was like this big scene. It wasn't until like a couple hours into it they realized, oh, it was Halloween night. And everyone was wearing their decorations or their costumes. And he said to this day, when he hears Pittsburgh, that's what he thinks of.
He thinks of crazy yins or ladies dressed up for Halloween.
Outside the Electric Banana in Oakland, yes.
Scott Tady with me. It's Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. More with the editor of the Beaver County Times after this.
What's going on this weekend?
I am going to kill somebody today.
Ooh.
I am.
Still liking the mix. I'm liking it on the Beaver. I'm digging.
Dude, it's not.
I know every once in a while there's a clunker.
It's not anywhere near what it's going to be, but we just in the last week or so have started. Hang on. We've started paying attention. We've started paying attention to details, and we weren't before that simply because we've now started fine-tuning the car. We've spent the last 3-4 weeks just trying to get the damn thing to turn over and be functional. We're just getting, it's going to get better. One of the issues with it, which is weird, but it's just reality. We have to work ahead, and when you work ahead, like music's in, music's been scheduled, music has been scheduled for through Saturday. Any changes that I'm taking stuff in, putting stuff out, that won't show up till Sunday. So when JD calls, why aren't we playing this? I go and I uncategorize it. It might still be in the system for 3 days till then, but it's just getting to the point where it's not a daily what the fuck.
The scope of what? Like you're playing Bob Seger stuff, but it's not the live tracks that I've heard a million times. It's like
no,
the
dude,
original.
How many times do you need to hear those?
Right.
Okay.
I'm
and you look at stuff and go, well, I like that band, but do you need to hear Heartache Tonight ever again? Ever? And when I go through, it's like, okay. And when we first put music in, we had 2 music catalogs, MU1, MU2. Put them in, like, all right, this sucks, but we got to get something in there. Then, like 2 days later, MU3 showed up, and MU3 is, dude, I'll show it to you. There's just shit. You have no idea what this category is supposed to be. But MU1 or MU2, which is technically rock, MU2 had 3 Bob Seger songs. And I remember thinking, oops, one more. Fucking Paulson. I remember thinking, where's all the other Cars songs? They were in MU3. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't know we had. For the last 3 days, I've probably put 300 songs. So, come back. What do you want to talk about?
I read about the Monaco record store. They have a cool new thing to talk about.
I was going to say, and if you want to, you can talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Paulson coughing. If you want to say nice things about the Beaver,
yeah,
you go right ahead.
All right, sum me up.
Stand by.
click on beavercountyradio.com. The Hopewell Shopping Center.
So the Hopewell Shopping Center has Whoas.
Today. And get
10 minutes till 11 o'clock. Scott Tady of the Beaver County Times is my guest. It's news and notes on entertainment like we do every Thursday. Good to see you again. I read something or I saw something, and I love doing this. Hey, you know, I saw this thing. Typically, it's something you posted on social media that I saw. Is there a new record store coming? Because I'm a vinyl geek my whole life, and my daughter's worse than me.
Well, it's a cool thing. It's Inner Groove Records in Monaca, and they've been there since 2020, but they just scored a huge collection. They just found 50,000, that's right, 50,000 records they bought from a person who's now deceased from Florida. His brother was caretaking them, looking for a good home and a good price, and they paid it, and it's been a big infusion. I have a story that'll be in the Beaver County Times sometime the next week or so, but I went down, Eddie, you'd love it, flipping through, they've looked at like 15% of this collection. Imagine how many boxes that is, 50,000 records. They blew a flat on a U-Haul, getting it down the hill.
That's a panel truck full of vinyl.
It really is. But the guy, he was an interesting character. Lived in Florida. By all accounts, he just stayed to himself. He worked the late shift, got home at 11, and he would just play his vinyl that he would buy the weekend before.
He found what worked for him, and he stuck with it. I love that.
A lot of 80s stuff, a lot of 80s metal, and of course, that's a genre that people are into and are buying vinyl again. People of, in their 50s now, and they remember listening to Dio and Ozzy and Sabbath and Accept and all those Crocus bands.
Except...
You know the song.
I do, actually. Throwing all sorts of obscure.
But I was in Inner Groove when a guy came in looking for Accept, and they had their record. They just scored it out of the 50,000 records they got. So it's a really fascinating story for the little Monaca record store that's... I'm trying to tell my Pittsburgh people, come up and see it. Everyone has this reputation, Jerry's and Squirrel Hill, great place.
It is a great place.
The Attic, a great place.
Also.
There's definitely some great vinyl, but I think with this collection they've scored, Inner Groove downtown Monaca is going to be right up there with the best vinyl stores that Western Pennsylvania has. Give
me a simple answer. I can't come up with one. Why are people going back to vinyl?
I think the sound, it's the warmest sound, but also just the joy of buying it, because you're going into a record store with like-minded people. You're not getting that you're home on the internet scoring something from Amazon. You walk into a record store, 8 times out of 10, you're hearing something exotic you've never heard before.
You're going to have a conversation with somebody that you've never met, and it's going to be about something you both care about. It's an emotional connection, isn't it?
And you're leafing through it. Oh, I remember this album. Oh, I forgot. I never heard of this one. And there's other people who have that same passion. You can see what they're buying, and you're kind of looking over your shoulder. Ooh, what's that guy checking out? And the record store people, they're usually freaks. If you ever saw the John Cusack movie, High Fidelity, with Jack Black.
I used to shop at the record store that store is based on.
Oh, you at Chicago, right?
Wax Tracks in Chicago.
Oh, jealous.
And you'd go in, and the glass cabinet, the records were all where the records were, but if you wanted the cool stuff, i.e. the cassette bootlegs,
yes,
they were under the counter, and you had to know how to get the man's attention. But that's based on Wax Tracks in Chicago, and it's 100% nails it.
Is it under the L? It looks like
it's very close to the L. You can take the L and walk the Wax Tracks in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
And there was also a really skeevy pizza joint real close that only took cash. Right?
Just the joy of going to record stores again. I'm so glad that a new generation is discovering that.
Yeah, and Jack Black as a record store clerk.
Snob?
Yes, you have those. Absolutely, and that's the God's honest truth. You have people that no matter what you come in there to buy, it's not as cool as what they look.
It's already been done.
Yeah. Oh, I had that out when I was 12. Simpleton. So it's the emotional connection to music. And you said something, and we got just a minute or two, and I'd like you to share it on the air, because I trust your judgment. We've known each other a long time. If you thought something was good, you'll say it. If you think something's garbage, you'll say it.
Fair.
And I've never doubted your, honesty or middle of the road, whatever. Is the sister station doing okay so far to you? That new music station we got going on?
I'm listening to the Beaver as my #1 station now. I love the mix. I'm hearing country songs that I hadn't thought of in a while, and I'm hearing some really deep, cool rock cuts. Like you guys are playing Bob Seger, but it's not the same old live tracks we've heard a zillion times. Where you're doing like the unlive version of Beautiful Loser, or you're doing some really deep stuff that you're just not hearing anywhere else. Just the depth of it makes me happy. That I'll hear an 80s metal song, and then I'll hear something like the Pretty Reckless, which is a very modern alternative rock band with Taylor Momsen, the actress. So I just love the mix. That's why I'm listening.
You know why, right?
Why is that?
Because the people deciding what happens with that station live here. And they decide, and it's not an email from a corporate overlord or a corporate music director that sends one playlist out for 150 of the same format stations.
And I get to hear your voice on there, and Frank Sparks's, and I like you have that wry take on some of the things you play. And
that's a very polite way to say you're
but it's personality. You don't get personality on a lot of radio stations.
Well, anybody that's digging the news station, that makes me happy. But when a professional that knows what's behind it likes it, you made my day with that.
It's good stuff. I'm telling people, listen to the Beaver 95 points. When they're not listening to you and I on Thursdays on BVP, every once in a while tune in. Is that safe to say?
It's counter programming, one-dimensional counter programming.
One big family.
Scott Tady, it's great to see you.
You as well.
You want to do a guest DJ on the Beaver?
Can I?
No.
Yes.
Told you we decide things here. If this was the corporate world, you could get an email.
Crushed my dream.
No, put together a playlist. And for those of you that can't see Scott, I can see the wheels turning right now.
I do like a Pink Floyd, like Freeform, like one of the.
Why?
Because it's something bizarre and obscure. And,
okay, then just put metal on and play the whole record.
Well, you could do that too.
All right.
I mentioned Crocus earlier.
Yeah, you did. I'm turning this down. Crocus, warrant, accept.
No.
Where's Winger?
Oh, that's Reb Beach from Pittsburgh on guitar.
I would take that and go with it. Scott Tady is my guest. Who was my guest the first hour? Oh, State Representative Jim Marshall. Today flew. It's Teleforum. Tomorrow, it's a short show also because of the luncheon with the candidates. So
ask them what songs they would play. That might affect my vote.
That's a great thing. All right, let me put that together. So you're running for city council. What's your favorite Zeppelin?
Yes, right. The public has a right to know.
I don't even need the answer. I just want to see how you react to the goofy ass question.